Welcome to another video for Design 103 CAD Fundamentals. In this video we're going to be looking at drawing 6-3, which is called link design. And if you're taking this as an 8-week class, this will be your Lab J, which you can see up here. So to start with in AutoCAD, what we're going to look at is kind of starting in the middle of this thing and working out. So I'm going to draw these center circles first, and then I will create these two links, use a polar array to array them around in a circle. Then I'm going to create this link here, then this link, and then finally I'll go back and do these other two, here and here. And these last two are going to be the trickiest ones, and we'll talk about a good strategy to get them in there once we get to them. But the trickiest part of this lab is getting this link and this link put in there because they're not at a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle like all these other ones. So this is probably one of the more difficult labs we'll do this semester, so if you have trouble with this or it takes you a while, don't feel bad because this is one of the more difficult drawings that we do in this class. So if you can get the hang of this one and get it mastered, you should be in great shape as we go through the semester. So don't feel bad if this one really challenges your AutoCAD skills. So I'm going to jump over to AutoCAD. I'm going to start in the middle of this and create sort of this plus shape that's in the middle of this link design. So going over to AutoCAD, I'm going to start out by drawing some circles, and if you look at our drawing, they've given us all the dimensions for these circles as a radius. So when I go into AutoCAD, I'm going to use my circle tool that is based on a center point and a radius. So remember, you always want to use the circle tool that is based on the dimensions they gave you. So if they gave me a diameter, I'd use center diameter, but since they gave me a radius, I'm going to use this top one for center radius. So I'll pick that, and I'm going to draw these three concentric circles that are in the very middle of the link design. The first one has a radius of 0.25. And I'll zoom in a little bit so I can see better. Choose the tool again. The next largest one has a radius of 0.625. Choose the tool again. And finally, the big one on the outside has a radius of 0.875. And it's important to make sure that you have the same center point for all of these, so use your center O-snap while you're drawing this so that all three of the circles are concentric and have the same center point. So I've got that in there. The next thing I'm going to do is start creating this link right here. And to do that, I'm going to use a couple of tools, mainly the copy command. So jumping back to AutoCAD, I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to copy it. But I'm going to copy it based on its bottom point. So you'll see my quadrant O-snap pop up, and I'm going to choose that as my base point. So I'm going to copy from there up to here. So I'm basically going to stack these two circles right on top of each other. And once I get that done, I'll hit escape. So I have the basis for the bottom of that link now. And I've got this drawn already, so I'm going to go ahead and paste in what it looks like when we're done so we can see. There we go. So that's kind of what we're looking for when we're done. So I'm working right in here right now. So let me move this up a little bit so it matches up better. Okay. And so the next thing I'm going to do is make another copy of this up here to create these top arcs. But to do that, I have to know where the center point of the next set of circles is. So looking at our drawing, you can see that they've given you that dimension right here, that 0.875. So to get that in my drawing, I'm going to go back to this circle and I'm going to create a line that goes straight up 0.875, and that will be the center point for another set of circles, which coincidentally you can see is right at the top of this existing circle. So if I take this and do yet another copy, this time I'm going to copy the center point up to here. So you'll see that they kind of overlap this second time. So I'll delete that center line now. I don't need it anymore. And to create this link shape, I'm going to create some lines on the outside that connect these circles. So I'm going to use my quadrant O-snap and draw lines across the outsides. And you'll hear me hitting the space bar, and remember that repeats the last command. So when I draw a line, I can hit space bar to end that line command, and then I can hit space bar again to begin the line command somewhere else. So you'll hear me hitting the space bar a lot, and that's ending a command and starting the same command again. So we've got that drawn, but we need to do some trimming here. So I'm going to go up and use my trim tool, and remember to trim, it's going to be a left, right, and then left click. So I'll left click to select the tool, right click once in the drawing window somewhere, and now you can left click to start trimming. So anything that I left click now will be a trim command. So I'm going to trim out the outside of this all the way around, and anything that's in this outside space I'm going to trim out. Okay, so we've got that done. Now going back and looking at what we need here, these arcs here and here really shouldn't be there. So I'm going to select this bottom arc right here and delete that. And then this center circle also should not be there. We're done with it, so I'm going to delete it. This top arc right here we do not need, so I'm going to delete that. And then we need to do a little bit of trimming on this circle right here. So I'm going to go back. Remember, it's left, right click, and now I can left click anything I need to get rid of. So I'm going to trim this back and hit escape when I'm done. And so the only thing we need to add in now is these two vertical lines that go between here. So we need to figure out the dimension for those. So going back to our drawing, we can see right here that those lines are supposed to be 3/4 of an inch apart. So I like to use the offset command to get these in here exactly. I think it's faster. So back in AutoCAD, what I do is I draw a line right here, just straight up through the middle. And now I'm going to use the offset command and offset it to either side. So remember, your offset command is right here, so I'll choose that. And the first thing you have to put in is your offset distance. Now if I need two lines that are 3/4 of an inch apart, they would be 3/8 of an inch off the center line. So I'm going to put in 0.375 as my offset distance. And I'm going to offset this to the right side, and then I'll click it again, and this time I'm going to offset to the left side. So I'll click on the left side. And now I can delete this middle line because I don't need it anymore. I've used it for its purpose, so I'll delete it. And I'm going to go back and do the trim command and trim the ends of these lines up so that they only appear in this center area. So I'll do a left click, right click, and now left click to trim anything that I don't want. And hit escape when I'm done to end the trim command. And so we've got these first couple of links in here, and at this point you're thinking, wow, this is really going to take forever. I can't believe we have to draw every single one of these links. Well, remember, you've got some other tools available to you in AutoCAD. We don't really have to draw every one of these links. We can use the polar array command after we get a couple of these in here for anything that's repetitive. So the next thing I'm going to do is draw this top link up here, and then we're going to be ready to do a polar array. So instead of drawing this whole thing, I'm going to use the copy command so that I can get part of it for free. We've already got something very similar drawn right here, so I'm going to do a copy on this. And I'm going to choose the bottom of it as my base point. So I'm going to copy from there up to here and just stack them on top of each other again. But if you look, you can see that it's not quite tall enough. This next link is supposed to be stretched out farther, so we need to go back to our drawing and see how long it should be. If we look here, our center to center point on these arcs and circles should be 1.25. So if we go back into AutoCAD, I'm going to draw a line right off the center of this circle straight up that's 1.25 long. And hit enter. And you can see if I click on this arc, ideally the center point should be right here, but since ours is too short, it's not going to be. When I click on these arcs, you can see that the center point instead is down here. Based on the grips, we can see that. So what we need to do is we need to take this center point and we need to move it up to here to the end of the line. So when I have these two arcs selected, I'm going to use the move command, and I'm going to hover over the outside of one of them so that I can O-snap to the center point. So you'll see my center O-snap pop up, and I'll click that. And I want to take that center point and move it up to here to the end point of the line that we just drew. So I'll click there. And now we know that our link is the right length. We know that the center line is 1.25 long, just like they show in the drawing. And you can see it's stretched out a little bit from the other one. So I can delete this middle line now. And the only thing I have to do at this point is extend these lines. And there's a couple ways you can do this. Both of them are correct. Just find one that works for you and stick with it. Some people like to use the grips, so you can click on these lines to select them, and then click on the grips on the end, and basically stretch them out to the other end point and click. So you could go through and do all these like that. And remember, if you want to deselect, you can hit escape and it will deselect the lines. So you could do it that way, or if you want, you could also use the extend command. So if I click my drop down for the trim button, you can see our other choice is extend. So I'll choose that. And the first thing I have to choose is what do I want to extend my lines to. So I'm going to choose this center arc so that I can extend these 4 lines. So I'll choose that because I want them to touch that when they're done. And once I hit that center arc, I'm going to hit the space bar or the enter key. And now I have to choose the objects that I want to extend to that arc. So for instance, if I choose this one, you'll see that it extends up until it touches that arc. And anything that I click is going to extend up. And once you get faster with the extend command, I think it's a lot easier to use than using the grips. So when you get comfortable with it, you'll see that it happens a lot faster for you. And remember, you can hit escape to deselect. So you can either use the grips or you can use the extend command. They both work, just depends on which one you like better. Okay, so now we're ready to do our polar array here. And so I'm going to take these 2 top links and array them around. Some people on accident choose all 3 of these, which you really don't need to do because we only need 1 of these. So you don't want to polar array this bottom circle because we don't need additional copies of it. So when you do your first polar array, you only want to choose these top 2 links. And you'll notice that I'm using a blue selection window so that I can select the top 2 links quickly. It allows me to select only what's totally inside the box, which in this case would be the 2 links. That bottom circle is not selected because it's not completely inside the blue box. So if I click here, you can see that I can easily select everything that's inside there. And now I'm going to go up to my array menu and choose polar array. And I'm going to use the center point of this circle as my array, so I'll click the center point. And you can see AutoCAD makes a guess on how many I might want. It thinks I want 6 total, but in this case we only need 4, so I can easily come up here and change the number of items to 4. And you'll see that it matches up what we're looking for, so I'll hit close array. And remember, after you do an array, it's going to take all of your objects and turn them into what is called a block. So if I click on my array, you can see how it looks at them all as one big group of items, which for this drawing is going to cause problems. We don't want that because I'm going to want to copy and paste these links like I've been doing all along so that I don't have to continually redraw everything. So in order to break this back apart into its individual pieces, remember you need to go back to the Home button when you have this selected. So select it first, then go to the Home button, and you're going to click the Explode tool, which remember is the one that looks like a cube broken apart into pieces. So I'm going to click the Explode button, and you'll see that all of my links are now broken apart into individual pieces again. So we've got that so far, and we're looking pretty good. The next thing we're going to draw is these 2 square links. So I'm going to draw this one, and after I get that done, I'll come up here and draw this one. So we need to see what the dimensions are for this small square link. So I'm going to go back to my drawing, and you kind of have to track down and see which one you're looking for. In this case, we're looking for this guy, which is the same all the way around, and we can see that it is 2.625 or 2 5/8 wide and 2 5/8 tall. So we have a perfect square here. So I'm going to start out in AutoCAD by drawing a square that's 2 5/8 by 2 5/8. And then I'll go back and put the link inside of it. So back in AutoCAD, I'm going to kind of work up in this top left corner, and when I get done up here, then I'm going to array this all the way around to create these other 3 corners. So all the work I'm going to do from here on out is going to be up in this top left corner. So I'm going to start with my rectangle tool, and I'll click my corner point, and for now I'm just going to draw it out here somewhere. We'll move it into position after we get it drawn correctly, but I'm going to draw it just kind of up here in the blank space for now. So I'll click for the start point on my rectangle. I'm going to do Shift 2 for the @ symbol, and I want this to be 2.625 tab 2.625. So that's going to give me a rectangle at the dimensions of 2 5/8 by 2 5/8. So I'll hit enter, and there we can see we have our square that's the correct size. So I'm going to use the move command and move him down here just a little bit. But again, it's not in the final position. I'm just going to get it drawn correctly to start with. And the next thing that I need to do is put a circle. Well, actually, let's do our fillets first. The first thing we need to do, if you look at these, is you can see how they have rounded edges on the outside. And that's done, again, with the fillet command. So the fillet on this, if you notice, the radius on the corners of these boxes matches up exactly to the links, to the circular part of the links. So if I come over here, we can see that the outside of that circle has a radius of 0.875. So the radius on the outside of these boxes is going to match up to the radius on this circle. So all these rectangles and squares are going to have an outside fillet radius of 0.875. So back in AutoCAD, I'm going to use my fillet tool. So I'll click the fillet tool. Remember, you have to set your radius, so I'm going to type R and hit enter. And I'm going to set my radius to 0.875. And you can see mine was already set because I was doing some drawing before I started the video. But in your case, that's most likely going to pop up as 0. So I'm going to type in my fillet radius and hit enter. And now I'm just going to choose the corners that I want to fillet since I've got my dimension typed in there. So I'll click these two, and I get my first radius on there. And then I'm just going to hit the spacebar again to repeat the last command. So when I hit spacebar, it knows to repeat the fillet command. You can see that down here in the command line. And I'll choose my two lines again, hit the spacebar to repeat the command, spacebar, choose the lines, and there you go. So I'll hit the escape key again to deselect anything. And now I'm just going to take this center circle and I'm going to move it up here. I guess copy it would be a better term. I'm going to copy this center circle up into this rounded square that we've created. Because ultimately, remember, we need to get one of these rounded links down exactly in the corner of this rounded square. So I'm going to select this middle circle with a green selection window, and I'm going to use the copy tool on that. And I'm going to select the center point for the copy just for now, and I'm going to paste one right up here in the middle. And I'll hit escape when I'm done. And now we can kind of come up here and isolate what we're working on. So I'm going to select this circle again, and I'm going to use the move tool. And I'm going to have to do two moves here to get this matched up exactly. You could draw a construction line in here if you wanted, but I think it's easier just to do the move command twice. So I'm going to use the move command on this set of circles. And I'm going to choose the bottom quadrant point first. I'll click that as my base point, and I'm going to come straight down until I intersect with the edge of the rectangle. And I'll click there. And now I'm going to do a second move and move to the right. So I'm in the correct position top to bottom, but I need to be the correct position left to right now. So I'm going to select those circles again, use the move tool again, and this time I'm going to choose the right quadrant point of that circle. So I'll click there, and I'm going to come straight over until the right side of my circles touches the right side of the rectangle. And when I click there, you'll see that we have this matched up exactly now through the fillet and radius of this circle. So by doing two successive moves, I can get that matched up exactly in the corner of the box. And you'll see me do that a lot as we finish up this lab. So make sure you know how that works. I centered it up, or I didn't center it up, I got it in position, top to bottom first, and then left to right. Now I'm going to use that same trick to put a circle up here in the top left corner of the box. So I'm going to select this whole thing again, create a copy, and I'm just going to put the copy up here somewhere. It doesn't really matter where because I'm going to have to move it into position still. So I'll put my copy up there, hit escape. Now I'm going to go back and select these circles again, and I'm going to use the move tool. And I'm going to start by moving it in position top to bottom. So I'm just going to grab this point and drop it like maybe right here for now. Now I have it in position top to bottom, but I've got to move it in position left to right again. So I'm going to select all the circles a second time and do a second move. And this time I'm going to grab the left point and move it straight over until I intersect. Right there. So now we have the circles up here in the correct location and down here in the correct location. And the next thing we need to do is start connecting these things on the outside and inside, so we end up with this link design that you see right here. So the trick is that I'm going to start drawing a line through the middle here, and then I'm going to offset that to the outside of the circles on the top and the bottom. And to do that, we need to know what the radius of our circle was. So if you look at the drawing, you'll see that the radius of this outside circle is 0.875. So that's what I'm going to use as my first offset distance. So I'll use the offset tool here, set it to 0.875 because that's the radius of our large circle, choose the line that I want to offset, and then which side do I want to offset it on. So I'm going to offset to the top first, so I'll click up here, choose the line again, and I'm going to offset to the bottom this time, so I'll click down here. Now I need to get another line also that's right here and down here. So to do that, I'm going to put in the radius of this next circle, which if you look at your drawing is 0.625. So I'll go back to the offset tool. This time I'm going to use a distance of 0.625, hit enter, select the line, click on the top, select the line, and click on the bottom. And now we've got everything in there, but the trick is knowing what to trim out so that you end up with something that looks like this. So my method when I do this drawing is that I like to start at the outside and I go all the way around this, almost like a racetrack, and trim out anything that I come across. This whole outside ring should be blank. So to start with, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to use my trim tool. And remember, it's a left click, right, and now left click to get rid of anything. So I'm going to start right here and just come around, and anything that I come across in here I'm going to trim out. And then once you get that, you can hit escape. And at this point you're going to have to do some comparing and see what you need to keep and what you don't. And one of the things you'll notice is we don't need this center line, so I'll delete that. And we don't need this circle at the other end, so I'm going to delete that. And we're getting fairly close now, and by comparing you'll see that we also don't need this or this, so I'm going to take those two arcs and delete them. And finally I need to do a little bit of trimming on this arc right here. So I'm going to use my trim tool, left click, right click, and now left clicking. And I'm just going to trim that back like so. And the only other thing we need to get in there now is the lines right here that go through this center section. So I'm going to start by just drawing one more center line that goes all the way out to here, and hit escape. And I'm just going to offset that to the top and bottom to create that line in here. And if you look, you can see those two lines are supposed to be 0.75 apart, and that's the same for every link. So I'm going to offset by 3/8 of an inch again on each side. So I'll use my offset tool. My offset's going to be 0.375 this time, so I'll hit enter. Click the line, I'm going to offset to the top, click it again, offset to the bottom. Hit escape to exit the command, and now I can delete that center line. We're done with it. And now I'm going to go back and do my trim tool and just clean up the ends of these lines. And hit escape when I'm done. And there you can see we've got that first box ready to go, so I'm going to move it into position. So I'm going to select the whole thing, and I like to use the center point of this link down here as my moving location. So I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to start right here. Make sure you get the triangle so you know you have the midpoint of that edge of the rectangle. So I'll click there as my start point, and down here I'm going to use that as my end point. And you'll see that it drops it right into perfect location. Now the next thing I'm going to do is draw this rectangle up here. The tricks are all the same. I guess this is actually a square since it's 3 by 3. But I'm going to draw this square box up here, and all the tricks are the same. It's just a little bit bigger than the last one we drew. So if you drew this one, everything's going to be exactly the same on the next one, just a little bit larger. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool again, click at 3, tab 3, hit enter, and I'm going to move it down here a little bit so we can see what's going on. The next step is to put those fillets in, so I'll use the fillet tool. You can see down here my radius is already set from the last time I used it, so I can just start clicking lines. And remember, you can use the space bar to repeat that command. Okay, we've got that, and remember the next step is to put your circles here and up here, so I'm going to copy those circles and move them into location, both in the bottom right corner and the top left corner. So I'll select these circles and do some copies. I'm just going to make both copies at once this time. We're going to speed this up a little bit. So I'll copy to there, copy up to there, hit escape. Now I'm going to use the move command a total of 4 times, twice on these circles and twice on these circles. So I'm going to select those, use the move tool, get them into position top to bottom, and do it again to get them into position left to right. And I'll do the same thing up here. Get into position top to bottom, and left to right. There we go. Now we're ready to start putting some of those center lines in there and the edge tangent lines that go out here. So I'm going to make my center line from circle to circle. Make sure you're using those O snaps. And I'll hit escape. Now we're ready to use the offset command. And our first distance, remember, was 0.875, so these numbers won't change. Click the line offset to the top, click it offset to the bottom, and I'm going to hit escape. Go back and choose my offset command again, and I'm going to change my distance this time to 0.625. Hit enter. I'll click the line offset to the top, click it, and offset to the bottom. Hit the escape key to exit the command. And now we're ready to start doing a little bit of trimming. So I'm going to trim this outside track again, just like we did last time. So remember, the trim command is left, right, now left clicking. So I'll start right here and kind of trim my way around the outside of this. And when you're done, you can hit escape. And we're done with our center line, so I'll delete that. We don't need this circle, so I'll delete that. And we also don't need these two arcs, so I can delete those. And then we just need to do one more trim on this guy right here, so I'll do a trim command, trim that, and hit escape. And the only other thing we need to get now is these two lines that go right here in the center section. So I'm going to put a center line back in there. And I'm going to use the offset tool, and remember our offset distance for this was 3/8 of an inch, or 0.375. So I'll type in my distance, offset to the top, offset to the bottom, hit escape. We can delete that center line now, and now we just need to trim it up and we'll be good. So I'll trim these end points off, hit escape, and there we have the same trick, it's just a little bit larger. This one is a little bit harder to move into position because we don't know exactly where it's supposed to go yet. I don't have any geometry that I can constrain this to or drop it right on top of like I did down here. So there's no link here for me to center it up on. So the trick on this is to draw in a couple of construction lines that are based on the center points of these other two links. So now I can move it into position left to right, and I'll do another move to move it into position top to bottom. And you might need to zoom in a little bit. Remember, you can use your mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And so I can use those construction lines to make sure that I have this in the exact right location even before I've drawn in these other two links. So we'll select those construction lines and delete them. We're done with those. And now here come the two tricky links. And before we get to these, if you go to our Blackboard page and you go to the Additional Resources tab, you're going to see a folder in there called Tips for Lab J, and right now it's inactive, but when you guys get ready to do this lab, I'll activate this folder so you have access to it. So when you go into that folder, I've made a PDF here that's going to help out with creating these two links, because since these are not at a 45-degree angle, they're a little bit trickier. So you can open up that PDF. Let me rotate it around here so we can see it. And essentially what I've done here is I've kind of made a step-by-step process for drawing these other links. And you'll see that the tricks are very similar. Okay, but these are not squares, they're rectangles, so you get a funny angle here. This isn't 45 degrees anymore. So you have to be a little bit more careful when you're drawing these, but the process is very, very similar to the ones we already did. So you might want to use this handout to help you step by step on how to draw these links. So going back to our drawing, I'm going to draw both of these at the same time. So I'm going to create a rectangle up here, and we have to look at these dimensions, so let me zoom out a little bit. We're going to have two rectangles. One is 2 5/8 tall, 3 wide, and the other one is 2 5/8 wide and 3 tall. So we're going to make two rectangles with the same dimension, but they're rotated 90 degrees from one another. So up here, I'm going to make a rectangle at 2.625 tab 3. So that's the one that's going to go up here in that notch right there. And I'm going to make another rectangle down here at 3 tab 2.625. And that's the rectangle that will ultimately slide into this notch right here. So the first thing we need to do, if we look at our sheet, is we need to fill up the corners of that box just like we've done before. Then we're going to drop those circles in right here and up here. We're going to connect the center points, connect the outsides, connect the inside circles, do some trimming, do a little bit of deleting, offset our lines, extend them up, and then delete the center line. Now the tricky step on these is right here where you have to extend those lines. And I'll show you that step when we get to it, but this is the step that makes these a little bit different from the others. So I'm going to start by filleting these boxes. And you're going to hear a lot of space bar when I do this, and remember this repeats the last command, it makes it a lot faster. That way I don't have to go up to the toolbar every single time. I can just keep my cursor right down here inside the drawing, and it speeds things up a lot. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this circle again down here, or this set of circles. And I'm going to put one here, and then a couple down here. And I'm going to move those all into location, just like we've been doing all along. So I'll move them top to top, and then left to right. And this one I move left to right, and then top to top. And it doesn't matter which order you do them in, as long as they end up in the corner like that. But you will have to do 2 successive moves, unless you draw construction lines in there. But I find this is the easiest way to do this. Okay, so we've got those all moved in. Now I'm going to draw my center lines for each rectangle. Okay, so we've got those in there. Now we're ready to do some offsetting. So I'm going to offset to the outside 0.875. So I'll offset this one up and down. And I'm going to come down here and do the same thing. Up and down. Hit escape, and we're going to go back to the offset command, and this time we're going to do 0.625. Offset up and down, up and down, hit escape, and let's go ahead and do some trimming around the outside now. So I'll do a left, right, and some left clicks now. And I'm just going to go around the outside of this like I always do. And we'll come back down here and do the same thing on this other rectangle. Trim that all out, and hit escape. And then we need to start looking at what do we need to keep and what can we get rid of. So we don't need the center line anymore. We don't need... Actually, yes, let's leave the center line in there for this one. So I'm just going to delete the circle for now. So let's delete the circle on both of those. We don't need these arcs, so I'm going to get rid of these two. We'll go back up here and do the same thing. Get rid of that one and that one. Delete those. And now we can trim this arc back. So I'll use a trim command on that. And trim both sides. And we'll come down here and trim both of those sides. And hit escape. And now the only thing we have to do is offset this line up and down to get those lines that are 3/4 of an inch apart. So I'm going to do my offset again. 0.375 inches. We'll offset up and down. And we'll offset up and down and hit escape. And here's the trick where you're going to have to use the extend command instead of using the grips, because you can see if I use the grips here, I can't get that angle right, and when I try and extend this line, it's not going to give me the correct angle. So you can come up here and find some kind of intersection point, but you can see how it doesn't match up with my original line. You can see the original dotted line in the back at the bottom, and that's going to tell me that that angle is not right. So to get this exactly correct, you have to use the extend command here. You can't use the grips on this one because you're not at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to come up here and use my extend command. And remember, you're going to choose the arc that you want to extend to. So I'm going to choose this one first, hit the space bar, and now you're going to choose the lines that you want to extend to that arc. So I'll choose this one and this one. And we really don't care about the center line because we're going to delete it anyway. So I'm going to hit escape. And I'm going to come down here and do the extend command on these two also. So I'll choose Extend, choose my arc, spacebar, and now choose the lines that you want to extend. And hit Escape when you're done. And I'm going to delete these two center lines now. We're done with those. And do a little bit of trimming. And there we go. So the trick on those is that you have to use the extend command. You can't use the grips to lengthen those two center lines. Okay? So the only thing we have to do now is move these into location and then do one more polar array on this thing and we'll be done. So I'm going to select this, do a move on it, and since we have this one in location already, I can use this point right here and just drop them into location right there. So that one's good. And I'll do a blue window around this guy, use the move tool, and I'm going to select the top and just drop him into location right there. And so we need to select these four links right here, and I'm going to do that with a blue window. So you can see if I do a blue window around them like that, it's only going to select those four boxes because they're the only thing that's totally inside. So I'm going to select those. And now I can do a polar array. I'm going to use this as my center point. And AutoCAD, again, usually guesses 6 as its original number, but in this case we want 4. So I'm going to come up here and change our quantity to 4. Close the array, and there you can see it's all finished up. And if you want, you can explode this when you get done. I like to explode my blocks usually after I create an array. So I'll hit the explode button, and there you go. Now you can see you've got all original lines again. Everything is individual, no groups or blocks inside your drawing. So I'm going to delete this one over here, and I can save this onto my flash drive. And there we go. So that's ready to upload to Blackboard. So make sure you download that Tips for Lab J PDF that I've got for you in the Additional Resources tab of Blackboard. And this is probably one of the trickiest labs we're going to do, so if it took you a while, don't feel bad. It takes me a while to draw this one, even as you can see from this video. So give it a shot on your own now. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.